Good morning, dear children. Welcome back to your geography lessons. I am Mrs. Roshni Nair, and today we'll be continuing with our second video lesson on chapter Australia. In our first video lesson, we started understanding chapter 16, which comes under the theme Study of Continents. Chapter 16 is Australia, location, area, political and physical features. So today doing we'll be doing part 2 of this video lesson. Part 1 we had already completed learning about location, area and political divisions of Australia, and in today's video lesson we will be understanding about political divisions. In short, we will revise and we will start with the physical features of Australia. Along with this video lesson, I will be sending you a blank map of Australia rivers so that next video lesson, when we are completing our part 3, I will be explaining you the map work. You can complete your map work in the map copy which I am sending now, this video lesson. And later in the PDF also I'll be attaching a question for you to complete the map work for Australia. So today we will be only introducing the physical features of Australia, and we will be doing two physical features today. Part 3 we will be completing the physical features and learning more about the rivers and lakes of Australia along with the map work. We started understanding chapter Australia, which is a country in Oceania, and we learned that Australia is officially known as the Commonwealth of Australia, and it is a sovereign country comprising the mainland of the Australian continent, the island of Tasmania, and numerous smaller islands. Australia is the largest country in Oceania, and it is the world's sixth largest country by total area. More about Australia, we had learned that it is situated entirely in the southern hemisphere, and that is why it is often referred to as land down under. So here, this is Australia on my screen. As I mentioned, it comes from the Latin word Australias. Australis meaning southern. Official name of Australia is Commonwealth of Australia. That is also important for us to understand. You can underline the same in page number 133 of our textbook, first paragraph. It is often referred to as the land down under, first point to underline. Second is meaning, or from where it is derived from, Latin word Australis, which means southern. And last important point is Commonwealth of Australia. It's the official name of Australia. We also understood that Australia is known by different popular names like island continent, continent state, one country continent, also land of migrants. These are the four different popular names for this country. Location of Australia we had studied in detail. Australia lies between the Indian Ocean in the west, the South Pacific Ocean in the east, Arafura Sea lies to the north of this continent, and the large water body south of Australia is the Southern Ocean. And this island continent lies southeast of mainland Asia. For extension, we had understood that Australia extends from 114° east to 154° east, and its latitudinal extent is 10 degrees south to 40 degrees south. The Tropic of Capricorn, which is also known as 23.5 degrees south latitude, passes through the middle of this continent. That is an important point for us to understand. I had given you in the previous video lesson PDF questions also the important latitude, that is the Tropic of Capricorn, which is also known as 23.5 degrees south latitude, passes through the middle of this continent. Australia is divided into 8 administrative divisions called state. Let me show you. Yes, first let us refer to the table 1 in page number 134. That is regarding the important points about Australia. The official name of Australia is Commonwealth of Australia. Highest elevation in Australia is Mount Kosciuszko, and lowest point Lake Eyre. Major rivers of Australia. We have 3 major rivers to remember, that is Lake Murray, Lake Darling, River Murray, River Darling, and River Murrumbidgee. Then we learned about states, that is, we learned Australia is divided into 8 administrative states. Administrative divisions called states, and the divisions and their capitals are very important for us to learn and by heart. There are only 8, so it will be easy for us to learn and by heart. First one is Western Australia, and the capital is Perth. Let me highlight it here. This is Perth, Western Australia, and Perth is the capital of Western Australia. Next is Northern Territory. Northern Territory capital is Darwin. Next important state is Queensland, and the capital is Brisbane. New South Wales down, can you see here? New South Wales, and the capital is Sydney. Victoria, 5th state of Australia, and the capital is Melbourne. 6th important state is South Australia, and the capital is Adelaide. See here, Adelaide. Next is Australian Capital Territory, and the capital here is Canberra. Last one, island state of Tasmania, and the capital is Hobart. So these states and capitals, as I mentioned, you have to by heart. It is important. Now let us start with our today's topic, that is physical features of Australia. Australia has the largest area of ocean jurisdiction of any country on earth, and it has no land borders. The northernmost point of the continental mainland are the Cape York Peninsula of Queensland. You can refer to page number 137 where physical map of Australia is given. So I'm referring to that map and explaining. That is, as I mentioned, the northernmost point of the continental mainland are the Cape York Peninsula of Queensland and the top end of the Northern Territory, but the northernmost point of the country lies in the Torres Strait Islands. So, in detail, we will be learning in this video lesson about the various physical features of Australia. So, let us start today's portions, that is physical features of Australia. You can refer to page number 135 of our textbook. Before we start our physical features, there are few important terms which I wanted to refer. First one is aquifer. Aquifer, the meaning of aquifer is a porous layer of rock capable of storing water and also allowing passage of water through it. Aquifer or aquifer, the purifiers which we use, no, that type. That is, I'm talking about the geographical feature aquifer. That means it is a layer of porous rocks, and these rocks will allow some water to pass through it, and also some water is stored. Next important term which we will learn today is artesian well. Important term, and there is a drawing also to be drawn. Explanation part is also important. What is artesian well? It is a well which is dug into an aquifer through which water rises to the surface by natural pressure. That's important term here. That is, water rises to the surface by natural pressure. Let us start by understanding the physical map of Australia. So this map which I am showing is physical map of Australia. Now let me name the four physical features first. Broadly, we can divide continent of Australia into four physical regions for the naming purpose. Otherwise, there are three main important regions. So that I will explain why I'm saying three and I'm also mentioning four here. So as I mentioned, we'll start from four broad physical regions which we can divide this Australia into. First one is Eastern Highlands. Second is the Central Lowlands. Third is the Western Plateau. Fourth physical region is the Rift Valley. Four physical regions. Now let me show you these. First one, as I mentioned, is the Eastern Highland. So here you can see this Eastern Highlands. It is also known as Great Dividing Range, and this lie near to the eastern coast of Australia. So I had circled here Cape York Peninsula, which is in the eastern coast and in the northern part of that. So lie near to the eastern coast of Australia, as I mentioned, and it separates the relatively narrow eastern coastal plain from the rest of continent. And these eastern Australian temperate forests have a greatest relief feature, the most rainfall and the most abundant and varied flora and fauna. Even the densest human settlement is in this region. And when we talk about the extension, it will be extending from Cape York in the north to down you can see here Tasmania. So the highland extends from Cape York in the north to Tasmania in the south, Tasmania in the south, and it is roughly parallel, or I can say close to the east coast of Australia. Let me divide that to show, yes. Now this division here on the western part of this division, you can see Western Australia is mentioned on the left hand side. So on the western part of this division is western half of Australia, and that western half also consists of Western Plateau. And this Western Plateau rises to mountain heights near the west coast and falls to lower elevations near the continental center. The Western Plateau region is generally flat, though broken by various mountain ranges, such as we have very famous mountain ranges in this areas like McDonnell Ranges and the Musgrave Range. Surface water is generally lacking in the Western Plateau, although there are several larger rivers in the west and the north, like we have Victoria River and Ashburton River and all, but otherwise it's lacking. And when we are having a closer look, you can see there are three deserts also in this region. These three deserts we will be marking in our map: Great Sandy Desert, Gibson Desert, and Great Victoria Desert. So these three are the important ones for the Western Australia. And between this Eastern Highlands and the western half of Australia, we have this region, which is, as I told, sandwiched or in between the Eastern Highlands and the Western Plateau. We name it as Central Lowlands. Let me show you. This is the Eastern Highlands. This is the Central Lowlands, and left hand side is the Western Plateau. Right? So this Central Lowlands are made up of Great Artesian Basin, which I told is a new word which we are going to study today, and Australia's larger river systems like Murray-Darling Basin and the Lake Eyre Basins are situated in this area. So here you can see these are the important rivers, and here we have Lake Eyre. So we have Lake Eyre Basin, and down we have Murray-Darling Basin. These are the two rivers which I am mentioning. So let us learn in detail. Today we will be learning the Eastern Highlands and the Central Lowlands. So these are the three major landforms. Otherwise the Rift Valley is not much. It's a long valley with steep wells and with several small plains in it. Not much to explain in that part. That is, there are lakes and Gulf of Spencer near to that. We have Rift Valley. This area is basically for tourist destination purposes. It's very popular in that part, Gulf of Spencer near to that. So as I mentioned, three major landforms. On the Eastern part of Australia, it is Eastern Highlands. Western part of Australia is Western Plateau. In between we have Central Lowlands. So I hope it's easy for you to understand now. Eastern Highlands on the eastern part, Western Plateau on the western part, Central Lowlands sandwiched between these eastern and western part. Let us start by understanding the first region or the first physical features of the continent of Australia, the Eastern Highlands. As I mentioned, the Eastern Highlands extend from the Cape York in the northern part of Australia. Let me show you. This is Cape York Peninsula in the northern part of Australia. It extends from there to coming under, you can see this Tasmania region. All this comes under the same region. So this Eastern Highlands extends from Cape York Peninsula in the north to Tasmania in the south, and it is roughly parallel, or I can say very close to the east coast. This is east coast of Australia. So Eastern Highlands is parallel or very close to east coast of Australia. And these mountains, you can see here, these are the mountain ranges, right? So these mountain ranges are broad and low. Here it is broad, so you can see here, these are broad and also low in the north, but the same mountains are narrow and high in the southern part. The mountain side which faces the east is steep, but the mountain side that faces the west, here west side, slopes gently towards the central lowlands. So this side, the opposite side which faces the eastern coast is steep, but the side which faces the central lowlands, that is the west facing slopes, are gentle towards the central lowlands. And these highlands are called Gregory Range in the Queensland. Let me show you the different names given to these eastern highlands. This is the same map which we referred for Australia political, that is showing the 8 states of Australia. The eastern highlands are called the Gregory Range in Queensland. Here in Queensland, the same eastern highlands are known as Gregory Range. Next, down, as we know from here, it's coming parallel like this down towards the Tasmania till here. So one is over, coming down to New South Wales. In New South Wales, the same Eastern Highlands is known as the Blue Mountains, and it is also known as the New England Range. Two names are given in the New South Wales states. Coming down, now we have, after New South Wales, we have Victoria state. So in Victoria region, the Eastern Highlands are called the Australian Alps. So three names, three different states, three different names done. Now, the highest peak of this Eastern Highland is Mount Kosciuszko, and it is 2,228 meters above the sea level. This Mount Kosciuszko also is in this Eastern Highland. And let me show you a few pictures of Eastern Highland, which is also known as Great Dividing Range. That is important for us to mention here because in our map work we will be marking Great Dividing Range, which is very prominent feature of Australia. Let me show you one more picture. The Eastern Highlands are also called the Great Dividing Range, as I mentioned. Why are these known as Great Dividing Range? Because the mountains form the main watershed of Australia. And let me show you another picture. These, these pictures are of Great Dividing Range. And this here, as I mentioned earlier, the highest peak of Australian Highlands, the highest peak of Eastern Highlands is Mount Kosciuszko, and it is around 2,228 meters above the sea level. And this highest peak lies in the Australian Alps region. And you remember, Australian Alps means the name given to Eastern Highlands in the Victoria state. That is why it is shown here. See on my screen here. That is in the Victoria state. This green color shows the Victoria state. So in the Victoria state, the same Eastern Highlands are also known as Australian Alps. Let me show one more picture of Australian Alps. Yes, this here, and top one, this shows Mount Kosciuszko, that is highest peak of Eastern Highlands. This one shows Mount Kosciuszko. I hope it's clear for you now. Now the second important feature here is central lowland. Before we go to central lowland, you can see here this part. As I mentioned, it is parallel to the eastern coast. This part is known as the Eastern Highlands. These ones, Eastern Highlands, and a number of Australia's principal rivers originate from these Eastern Highlands. There are snowy rivers which flow down the steep eastern slope, while there are other rivers like River Darling, River Lackland, and also Murrumbidgee River. These three rivers flow down the western slope and they join the main river, Murray. So here you can see Murray Basin. This is River Darling, Lake Eyre, as I had mentioned before. There are a few rivers and lakes which we are going to mark in our map work also. So let me just repeat myself. That is, this part, this color shows the Eastern Highlands here, and as we had read, one side is steep and one side is comparatively gentle towards the central lowlands. So these are the central lowlands. It's shown by a different color. So the mountain which is facing towards the central lowlands are gentle. Other side, opposite side, which faces towards the east coast will be steep. So what was the main property which I mentioned? There are a number of principal rivers which originate in this part, that is the Eastern Highlands. The Snowy River flows down the steep eastern, that is the other part, to the eastern slope, and the side which faces towards the central lowlands, the River Darling and River Lackland, and also River Murrumbidgee. These three rivers flow down the western slope. So from here, these are flowing down. So here there is a river mentioned with the blue color. You can see these three rivers flow down the western slope and they come down and join this main river, River Murray, which is the main river of Australia. So let us start with the second physical feature of Australia, that is the central lowlands. The central lowlands are a rainless, flat, low-lying area between Eastern Highland and Western Plateau. This side is Western Plateau, this side is Eastern Highlands. And the central lowlands extend from, can you see here, Carpentaria Basin? So here we have Gulf of Carpentaria in the north, and to down here it goes to Encounter Bay. Here there's a bay here which is known as Encounter Bay, and here in the Encounter Bay it forms the world's largest artesian basin. Very important term related to the chapter, related to the geographical feature. So the explanation of that, drawing of artesian basin, everything is important. Artesian well diagram, artesian basin description is important, that I will cover in a slide for you to understand, and also the formation. So let me repeat myself. As I mentioned, these are central lowlands, and this central lowlands extend from here, extend from Gulf of Carpentaria in the north to Encounter Bay in the south. From Gulf of Carpentaria to Encounter Bay in the south, forming the world's largest artesian basin. And even these central lowlands we can divide into three distinct parts, because here when we are talking about Carpentaria, here we have the Carpentaria lowlands, and in between lake is there. So the next I can divide is the Lake Higher Basin. Then coming down we have Murray river passing through, so we can say it is the Murray-Darling Basin. Three parts basically. Let us understand the central lowlands once again. As I mentioned, it is very low-lying area between the Eastern Highlands and the Western Plateau, and the central lowlands extends from the Gulf of Carpentaria in the north to the south coast, that is still Gulf Encounter Bay in the south. And the major rivers we have to learn from this part is River Darling, River Murray, and Lake Aya. And few more things for us to understand is the central lowlands can be divided, as I mentioned, into three distinct divisions, that is the Carpentaria lowlands. In between we have the Lake Aya Basin, and in the southern part we have the Murray-Darling Basin. And when we are talking about Lake Aya Basin in the center part, it is the world's highest area of inland drainage. Inland drainage word is very important for us to learn. That is also one of the new term for you. What do you mean by inland drainage? Means the river flowing in this area do not reach to the sea. That is because of the flat nature of the land, the rivers will not be reaching the sea. Before that only these rivers are being absorbed by the normal land. So in this area these rivers will never reach the sea. And few areas in central lowlands are dry lowlands, right? Another most important point from this part is River Murray is the longest river of Australia. River Murray is the longest river of Australia. Remember that? Now, since I had explained the central lowland, as I mentioned, artesian well, artesian basin, aquifer, all these are important terms related to the artesian well. So let me explain artesian well in detail. This is a picture of artesian well. As you can see, right hand side, I had taken few original pictures from the Australia's website, which shows an artesian well. And left hand side, this picture is from our textbook, which is showing the formation of artesian well. So where is the largest artesian basin situated? That is Encounter Bay, near to Encounter Bay, which is in the southern part of Australia. That region forms the world's largest artesian basin. Now, in the artesian basin, what is important for us to learn? See, artesian well, how you are going to learn? There is a layer of porous. Can you see here? This is mentioned here as pervious or permeable rock, impervious or impermeable rock. Two rocks in between, that is the lighter color. This two lighter color shows impervious or impermeable rock, between one where the water is allowed to pass through them. That is the porous rock, pervious rock or permeable rock, opposite type. So here it is like a sandwich form, no? So both the sides we have impervious rocks, in between we have permeous rock. That's one thing. And there is a well like this. See how the water is coming outside. This also, here they had utilized that water, and here there is a hole from where the water enters, and from where water will come, the water seeps in from this hole, the rainwater, right? The rainwater can easily seep in from here. So now let me explain. In an artesian basin, a layer of porous or pervious rocks, this is the light blue color, is showing the porous or pervious rock. It lies between two layers of impervious rock and acts as a reservoir. Reservoir means it will save water for some time. The rainwater here, can you see here arrows are shown? The rainwater that seeps underground is trapped in the pervious layer, which becomes an aquifer. So here this is rainwater, this rainwater only becomes aquifer. A layer of rock capable of holding water and allowing it to pass through, that is known as aquifer. It will hold water sometime and it will also allow the water to pass through it. When the well is bored into the aquifer, the water which is under pressure gushes out. So here when the water gushes out, so spontaneously, and this well is called artesian well. I hope you understood the concept. Drawing is important and also explanation of this aquifer and artesian well is important. So what are the important words here? Porous or permeable rocks here, which is sandwiched between the impermeable or impervious rocks. And what happens? This aquifer is formed. Aquifer is what? A layer of rock which holds the water and it also allows the water to pass through it. And when the well is bored into this aquifer, the water which is already under pressure will gush out simultaneously. That's how the water comes out. With that, we come to the end of this video lesson. Let me inform you again. I am attaching a blank map, Australia river map, for you to keep, so that next video lesson I will be sending you the map work of Australia, which is important for you to do, so you can prepare and keep. And also one more thing I had to mention is about the PDF questions which I am sending for you. These PDF questions are important for you to attempt. I will send you the answer with the third video lesson. With that, we come to the end of this video lesson, and as I had promised in my first video lesson, I will be showing you and informing you few important facts of Australia. So today I will be informing three more important facts. First one, if we are visiting Australia beaches, for example, if I have a plan to visit Australia beaches, it will take around 27 years for me to visit all the beaches of Australia. If, for example, I am covering one beach per day. So if I start today, one beach per day, after 27 years only, I can complete visiting the beaches of Australia. Another important and impressive fact which I found is that around 18% of Australia is full desert, and Saudi Arabia imports camel from Australia. Yes, and that is a fact. So, thank you, dear children. Keep exploring and learning. Do take care of yourself.